Welcome. So in this session we would focus on Yojana edition for June, and this edition specifically focuses on defense, rural development and health. So it begins with Operation Sindoor. In light of the Pahalgam terror attack, Operation Sindoor was launched, and this has been basically one of the major steps to target the installations in Lahore and the radar facilities in the neighboring areas. Some of the false narratives which were exposed during the times of Operation Sindoor have been brought onto the social media, where there were cases of manipulating information, and those are being investigated by international social media platforms. Also, what has been a major important development is the decisive shift in India's counter-terrorism strategy. Again, the Indus Water Treaty has been revoked, which was one of the major centers of the dialogues between the two nations. Now, if we look onto the map here are some of the major terror camps that you can see, and the list of these terror camps, the name of these terror camps have been listed in this location. So these were in the regions of Pak occupied Kashmir and the regions of Pakistan. The purpose was to initiate or execute the mission against the act of terrorism and dismantle the major terrorist infrastructure which was present on the border areas. Now this was done through intelligence and specific target selection. The major concern was that civilians should not be targeted as part of this project, and this should have the operational ethics as they were raised. Now, once this whole idea of Operation Sindoor was brought in, there is a concept of rise of Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India that was paramount in the case of national security. So the measured military response was launched, and this was to target the specific locations. This was integrated with indigenous technology being used for India, specifically in the case of drones, air defense and electronic warfare. And then defending the skies was again one of the major things that was to be taken into consideration. So India's integrated counter unmanned aerial system grid and air defense mechanisms were brought. The border areas were trained with mock drills and bunker systems. Also, there was some of the indigenous systems like Pechora, OSA AK, LLAD guns and Akash, which proved very remarkable in the operations. And then the coordinated response and the joint efforts of Army, Navy and Air Force were very important. Now, one of the major air bases of Pakistan that was attacked was the Noor Khan and the Rahim Yar Khan, which were two of the major centers for Pakistan's air base, and these were considered as high value assets. Now again, in the previous one of the sessions, we have talked about Sarvesky's air power theory, which is one of the major theories in geopolitics. Also, the book that he has composed, The Victory Through Air Power, turns true because ultimately it was a showcase of aerial superiority, and therefore this becomes one of the major answer writing question, specifically for geography students with political geography as one of the major sections, right? In the case of defense production, we have gone significantly up and projected to touch a nearly 3 lakh crore mark for defense production. So the vision for 2030 and beyond is important. We have initiatives across Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu in collaboration with DRDO, BHAL, HAL and even private firms working for defense and manufacturing in defense, and indigenous platforms and integrated smart systems for security grid would be synergized. Also, we are trying to have more of swift and intelligence driven response. So retaliatory response, if any, should be in complete synergy, and that was one of the major things that was identified. CDS, that is the Chief of Defence Staff and Chief of Services, played an important role in the mission. And then under the Department of Military Affairs and Department of Defence, the logistics, procurement, planning, all the operations went coherently. So recently there was the Inter-Service Organization Command, Control and Discipline Act 2023, which was passed, which empowers unified command by giving CDS the authority for all the three services from within such command. So that means the Chief of the Defence Staff would have the authority to command all the three wings, Army, Navy and Air Force, and this is one of the very integral and crucial operations which can be conducted only with synergy. So joint resource optimization and training is important, and then the tri-service training and exercise where all the three services come together and have a streamlined synergy is again important, because each have their domain expertise, and a joint war fighting strategy is required. The next is advanced staff training. So Defence Services Technical Staff Course was conducted in 2024 June in Pune, where nearly 166 officers from Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard and other partner nations came together under the instance of fully tri-service framed curriculum. The participants actually shared knowledge in defense strategies, R&D, defense industrial zones and live field exercises with the aim of having a self-reliant India, or the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now this tri-service Chintan, or the strategic dialogue, which was held in April, was again a brainstorming platform to bring in better collaboration and technological innovation. Integrated Air Force operations, where Navy and Army work with the air defense to actually redefine the maritime and the aerial conditions, was again important. And the integrated air command and control system of India's Air Force helped in providing seamless data, video and communication integration. Also air warfare strategy and 2025, which was held towards the end of April, talked about emerging aerial threats that could be seen. Now Chief of Defence Staff, as we said, have a very important role under the new act which has been defined, and he oversees the Army, Navy, Air Force, Territorial Army for better coordination. He leads the tri-service organization. He is a key advisor to Nuclear Command Authority and plays a major role in defense planning in India, implementation of resources, execution of defense strategies and leadership for integrated military operations from India are all conducted under CDS, that is the Chief of Defence from India. The next is the rural prosperity comes through storage infrastructure. Now under this we would understand that India has seen a rise in the credit card use during the post-harvest financing, which has not gone as it should. So banking and financial institutions are not pretty confident to increase the lending exposure against the amount that they had committed for the agricultural produce. There has been a mismatch between the agricultural production and the warehousing capacity, and the installed warehousing capacity is somewhere around 240 million metric tons, while the grain production is somewhere around 330 million metric tons. So there is a shortfall which we can see for the storage places, storage infrastructure, and agricultural infrastructure fund worth nearly 1 lakh crore has been granted in order to increase the storage infrastructure for the agricultural produce. Now India has nearly 6.5 lakh villages, and in all these villages agriculture is one of the crucial activities of the rural population, which constitutes to nearly 58% of the population, which is expected by 2024. We see if the rural infrastructure is strengthened, that would have a significant impact. The procurement has been standing significant. For example, for cotton cotton, it was somewhere at around 325 lakh bales, which is significant. And it's important to reduce the distress sales, improve the income stability of the farmers to ensure that there is no much out migration from the rural areas. Post harvest storage again becomes important, because this would prevent the seasonal price fluctuations or the volatile market conditions which are present. Also, the income losses and the distress sales must be checked properly. If those are because of inconsistent storage, this should be ruled out, because it definitely affects the CPI or the consumer price index because of the sudden changes or the fluctuations in the prices that are reported. So understanding the storage facilities and the production is important, as this chart shows the price movement across various things. So we have seen, be it basmati, jeera, turmeric or red chili, all of them have seen a significant hike in the price market in last 1 year period. However, we are talking about a strong nation. We ensure food safety. So clean food is very, very important for better livelihood. So adulteration in any form needs to be checked. Adulteration has been found widespread in milk, spices, edible oil, and sometimes they are done with diluted harmful substances which are detrimental to health conditions, leading to severe health conditions like cancer and so on. So food safety, specifically to protect any kind of contamination or foodborne illness, is important, but at the same time it is important for any kind of physical or chemical fragments or hazardous things that could be found. Physical hazardous things could be metal fragments, glass pieces within the food articles. Chemical hazardous things could be heavy metals, pesticide residues which could be found, and therefore organic farming is one such way to boost the production, the quality of food, but at the same time it also reduces the dependence on pesticides and insecticides. So educating farmer on GAP, which is the good agricultural practices, is one of the essential aspects. Any kind of contamination can lead to financial losses, export rejection, it could damage the reputation and cost Indian currency in terms of billions, right? So it is important that good agricultural practices are followed. The news of frequent food scandals that are commonly seen and reports of banned pesticides which are being used should be checked with stringent measures to ensure that food conditions are good. Also, poor storage conditions and inefficient supply chains should be checked. Now, as we have already talked, adulteration is one of the widespread threats, be it spices, oil, sweets, all of them are being adulterated either with colors, toxic chemicals or cheap substitutes. For example, methanol yellow is used in turmeric, argemane oil is used in mustard, and both of them are linked to kidney and liver diseases. So these kind of unethical practices should be curtailed. Strengthening should be made on checking laboratory facilities, better law enforcement and strict punishments should be there. Hygiene in food handling is again important, specifically for the vendors on the roadside. Unsanitary conditions, unhygienic conditions for the informal sector, which is the street vendors selling the food, should be checked. There has been a significant link which has been identified between the pesticide use and diseases like hepatitis, diarrhea and even cancer. Aflatoxin contaminated grains have been associated with liver damage. The damage has also been reported in terms of economic losses. Antibiotics which are given to the poultry has contributed to significant antibiotic resistance among individuals, leading to serious health risk. Long-term exposure of heavy metal leads to kidney failure and cancer. Also, FSSAI is talking about setting food safety regulations across various sectors. APMC is responsible for implementing the checks at the market level, and BIS talks about the norms which remain as of now low and should be brought into more stringent ways. Now, there have been case studies and success stories also on the other hand. For example, Sikkim's organic transformation. Sikkim is India's one of the first organic state, and there is no use of synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. FSSI's the Eat Right initiative, which talks about hygiene practices, mandating food safety protocols and testing regulations. India's grape exports to US and European Union have increased, and those are in line with the global safety standards, but there are challenges. As we said, the supply chain is fragmented. There are lot of small and marginal farmers, that make it difficult to bring them under one umbrella. India has nearly 150 food testing laboratories, but those are still under equipped. Less than 10% of the produce from the cold storage actually benefit from the cold storage. So that means there is a mass wastage of the food production that is seen. The exports have faced frequent rejections in terms of higher amount of pesticide residues. Specifically, we have found true for basmati rice and spices. So promoting good agricultural practices through training programs, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, NGO help, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati have been some of the ways under which this issue could be sorted out. Then we talk about the India's export sector for food. So India is embracing a circular economy principle, making food processing more sustainable, friendly and competitive. So we actually cultivate two season crop, Kharif season and Rabi season, and then we have an intermittent Zayed season for the fruits and the vegetables. But we do have export challenges in terms of the instability in the policy making, huge dependency on export because we are highly over reliant on few staple products like basmati or sugar. So this makes a narrow choice for the export potentials. There is lot of infrastructure gap. The global standards are not compliant, and we are trying to integrate with the global value chain systems. But we do have opportunities and strategies for food and agricultural export that should be followed, which is firstly a chemical-free sustainable food rising. Since millets consume less water, more of millet cultivation, more of pulses cultivation, again it consumes less water. Going for eco-friendly farming approaches, there is more demand of wheat and rice from Middle East and Africa. However, European Union brings in specialty food articles which are demanded. So for example, Nutrisil. So agro-based industries should grow, and even agricultural produce which is being exported should be taken into good care. So trade infrastructure for export schemes for logistics, cold storage improvements are again important. Also precision agriculture is really important. So processed food export actually has a very important advantage, specifically over the raw staple, because this increases the shelf life, makes the food more durable and sustainable for long trade. Also, once you are doing processing, you are adding value to it. So for a raw food, if you can get a 1 rupee margin, for a processed food you can possibly get a 5 rupee margin on the same product. And that's a simple example to explain how processed and unprocessed create a difference, which can yield higher profit margins and enable better market capturing. So for example, as we said, in European Union, Nutrisil is one of the major markets. So processed food can go under different brand names, and they can bring in better opportunities for the MSMEs in India. So India does has a great potential for agriculture and processed food to be exported, and we have seen creating accounts of food exports which have reported nearly increase of 13% in the last 1 year, and this has contributed to significantly under the Make in India scheme. The next is the circular economy. So when we are talking about 2 crops a season, we are definitely trying to reduce the water utilization, the pesticide utilization, and the production and the harvesting processes are to be streamlined. So this approach actually minimize the waste, promote promotes sustainability and reuse, and we are able to increase the global demand for organic, value added and sustainable products. Also, innovation in waste management and green packing is important. There are various strategies which have been brought for bringing in lower energy consumption, reducing the transport cost, making supply chain more efficient, cold storage, making cold storage itself efficient so that less electricity consumption is there. And all this is part of the initiative of circular economy. And then of course, development of the infrastructure and urbanization is important. With greenery, more mobility and technological advancement, there is a strategic spatial development in the urban areas, and this is one of the ways through which India is on track to become the third largest economy by 2027, where we would have robust infrastructure development and coordinated effort. Pragati is one such platform where all of these have been witnessed. Now, in terms of infrastructure, we have seen a huge boom in India. We have recently inaugurated the new Pamban railway bridge, which is a vertical lift infrastructure which has been inaugurated. Similarly, the Bogibeel bridge in Assam, the Trans Harbour Link, the Atal Setu in Mumbai is again important, and then the recent Chenab Bridge, which is one of the highest vertical arch bridge, is again important. As we have seen through AI, big data, deep learning, blockchain, GIS, GPS, we are able to have advanced technologies into India and bring them onto a coordinated platform. Prime Minister's Gati Shakti Master Plan has also emphasized infrastructure and sustainability in the same. Also, we have seen that the clearances for approval time has reduced from 600 days to only 70 days, and whole of government approach weaves towards diverse facilities, work spaces, social amenities, co-working atmosphere, time management and citizen management platforms. Integrated GIS system with data sets from center ministries and states are again important, and these blueprints would actually help in making infrastructure more approachable. Cities are already consuming 60% of the energy but produce 75% of the greenhouse, and therefore we have the heat island effect, and to confront that, circular economy models would be well designed. We are redesigning the urban shift from car centric to mass transport or walkable 15-minute cities, as it has been named. Also, in the urban development, we are focusing on the term biomorphic urbanism, green roofs and permeable pavements. Now, these we have covered separately in our lectures for answer writing for UPSC geography optional. Extremely important, cover this section carefully. Now, if we look onto this graph, you would see how the services and the digital atlases have a real application with the thematic maps, and this data is used for interpolation, innovation and deep learning. So there are 6 principles of Gati Shakti Yojana: integrated development, multimodal infrastructure, last mile connectivity, expedited land acquisition, minimum time for clearance and reducing the ecological impact. And the key drivers are basically the digital infrastructure, the urbanization, the reduced government interference and upskilling and technological well-being. Again, we have June as the month for the International Yoga Day. So yoga for one earth, one health is important. Here we have talked about that yoga comes from the Sanskrit word yug, which means to join and unite mind, body and spirit to promote self-discipline, balance and harmony. So yoga provides a holistic approach to health, and under the UN General Assembly resolution in December 2024, June 21 was declared as the International Day of Yoga, and since then yoga has been celebrated. And for 2025, the punchline or the vision is yoga for one earth, one health, to make world more sustainable and bring in collective harmony. So this would feature 10 unique signature initiatives to amplify the global impact, which would have the core values of Yoga Sangam, Yoga Bandhan, Yoga Vatikas, Yoga Samavesh, Yoga Sparsh, Yoga Connect, Harit Yoga, Yoga Unplugged, Yoga Mahakumbh and Yoga Samardhan. So those are some of the major 10 pillars of yoga that have been released this year. Now, as the name and the version select explain, this is to integrate yoga into the mainstream and bring in the developments under yoga. The next is new media. Through new media, we are talking about active participation on not only the consumers but also those who create an influence. So new media brings in real-time two-way communication, which is more personalized and shape the content. So in the Aristotle's rhetoric, which was developed nearly 2300 years ago, we find the idea of linear three basic elements: the speaker, speech, and the listener. However, in the 20th century, we have talked about the model in a where we talk about who says what, the channel, to whom, and with what effect. The concept of noise was later introduced by Shannon, and then we have the SMCR model, which is the source, message, channel, and receiver, and then we have included the concept of feedback under Dennis McQuill's concept for the communication. So the new age technology or the new media technology brings in interactive, immediate two-way interaction through various technological bases, online accessibility, and participatory platforms. So this has brought in a dynamic idea. Now, Aristotle's rhetoric, as we already saw, emphasized the art of persuasion, and then we have the Laswell's model, who says what and what channel, to whom, with what effect, and that is one of the major questions that have been addressed. Then later on, it was the Shannon's and the Weaver's model that we already talked about. Then came with the Berlow's model, the SMCR model that we explained, and then the feedback model under McQuill. So those were some of the important things that have been addressed under this issue. So thanks for joining in. In case you have any questions or queries, feel free to connect back. Of course, we are covering Yojana Kurukshetra Down to Earth every month. Down to Earth comes fortnightly. So the handouts for all these would be available on Exam Race current affairs sections for free. Thank you. Have a great day ahead.